two-time Paralympian, founder of Born to Run, season 43 competitor on Survivor, and so much more. Thank you so much for joining me, Noelle Lambert. Welcome into Respect Her Game. First and foremost, I mean, with a title or titles like that, how do you not feel so epic? But also, like, how's 2025 been treating you so far?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here. 2025 has been pretty chaotic from the start. My fiance and I have just moved into a new home, so we spent basically the end of 2024 packing, and now the whole last month has just been very chaotic with trying to get things in order. But very exciting things, and very grateful that we've been able to kind of make this move into our dream home.
Absolutely. Moving is fun and not fun all in one. But if you live for the chaos, which I'm sure as an athlete, you had to learn how to live for the chaos, you find ways to manage. Also, by the way, happy belated birthday is in store. How did you
Yeah, thank
celebrate
you.
while packing? Or did you celebrate while packing?
It was actually really funny. So our closing for the house was on my birthday. So that's how we celebrated is
That's a
we
celebration.
came with a big old check, and then I got the keys to the new house, and then we did some packing, and then we went up to Portsmouth and just we didn't even spend the first night in our house because wasn't ready. So we spent the night in Portsmouth and went to dinner.
Oh,
And then
that's
spent
exciting.
the rest of the week packing. So
Oh, I
pretty
love
chaotic,
that.
but yeah.
Well, at least there was a big gift in the mix of all of it. So I'm glad that that worked out as well. I know when you're moving, like you
Absolutely.
either have to stay somewhere else or me and my family from a military brat background, it's the air mattress or the mattress in the middle of nothing. And
Yep.
that's where we live for as long
Absolutely.
as we can. So I
Yeah.
mentioned your epic intro. You've been the recipient of a number of just highly regarded accolades for the work that you've done, not only in your own life, but in the community. So for anyone kind of new to your story, Noelle, we have to start there. You have this life-changing moment as a freshman in college. You were a college lacrosse player, and you go from lacrosse to the Olympics. So kind of talk about that initial life-changing moment as a freshman in college. Like, freshman in college is already enough as is to learn and grow as a human, but what was it like when your accident happened?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, as a human, I grew up playing sports. I have three older brothers, so was always inspired by them. They were all great athletes, and I was always trying to be like them. So from a very young age, the only thing that really came naturally was being athletic and was playing sports. And it was really, truly the only thing that I loved. And when I went to college, I was ecstatic because it was the only dream that I had was to play collegiate sport. And when I got there, had an outstanding freshman season. And then the summer following my freshman year is when I was involved in the moped accident. I lost my leg. And I think the first thing I thought of, it was lacrosse and it was sports because personally I'd never been through a long period of my life without being active in some sort of way. I never really went through a tough injury. So having all of this hit me at once, I was honestly laying on the ground thinking that I was never going to be able to walk again, let alone play sports and play lacrosse again.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, like, whenever something happens, they say that like a million things flash through your mind, but you mentioned like how athletics has been so imperative in your life from an early age. And looking back at some of your interviews, something you said has just stuck with me tremendously. You said immediately as you start going through this processing, you were not going to let this moment define you. And the body can do miraculous things, but there's no physical result without that mental impact. What were some of the first mental, I want to say, obstacles that you had to find yourself going over or your support system help you with to start, coming to terms with how you were going to move forward from this?
I think a lot of the mental obstacles that I had to deal with was just coming to terms that this was going to be my new life and learning all about prosthetic legs that I had never. I mean, my uncle was a double baloney amputee, so he was kind of the only amputee that I knew of, and so I wasn't really experienced with knowing all about the technology and everything, and I didn't even know if I would be able to run again. I knew that I was going to be able to get a walking prosthetic, but I think when I was laying in my hospital bed, all the support that I had, I mean, that was one of the biggest reasons why I was able to think that I could overcome this was because of the community that was behind me, my friends, my family, all of my coaches and teammates were visiting me every single day, the whole UMass Lowell community. And I also was very fortunate enough to have a lot of the Boston Marathon survivors reach out to me. And actually, a few of them came to visit me And
Wow.
that's really when I realized that this was just, a leg. It wasn't this was going to be a life changing moment, but it wasn't going to limit me because they were actually the first people to tell me that I would be able to live the active lifestyle that I wanted to. And hearing everything that they were telling me, and after hearing everything that they went through, that's when I really told myself I can't feel sorry for myself. Nobody did this to me. I was the reason why this happened, and I needed to take what had happened to me and kind of turn it around for the better and just prove to not only myself but to everybody else that I could do it. And so that really was kind of the defying moment, was having them come and visit me, because they're teaching me all about prosthetic limbs. They're showing me pictures of all the different types of prosthetic legs that you can have. I mean, it was a running blade, a waterproof leg. I think one of them was a pretty leg for when I wear skinny jeans, and it's like
No
a foam that
way.
wraps around so it molds with my leg. So it was all these exciting things that I knew that I could potentially get. And so that's really what helped my mental state. It helped me ease all of my worries with thinking, is this, am I going to be in a wheelchair? Am I even going to be able to walk? Am I going to be able to run? And so I knew if I would be able to get a running blade, then lacrosse was still on the table. That was
Yes.
never, I never had a moment where I thought I couldn't play lacrosse again. And luckily for my community that I had behind me, they were rallying behind me, agreeing with me, saying, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to in your life. We will help you get there. And so I think having that support really motivated me, and it kept me going.
Yeah, it changes the optics on you having this mental battle ahead of you. And also seeing like that there's so many options, and those options that you just explained, which I absolutely love, it
Yeah.
removes the confinement. I think the first time our lives are impacted by something, we just immediately feel confined. So it sounds like everyone who talked to you, stood by you, supported you, just kind of broke down those walls immediately and said, hey, we're still
Mhm.
in this, which is
Yeah.
tremendous. And you mentioned it immediately. It's like, I'm still playing lacrosse, I'm still in this. So what was the timeline from the incident to you getting back on the lacrosse field? Like, I love that you went right back into, I'm playing lacrosse, so how do we get this going?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely a little bit unprepared about how long the process was going to be. Obviously, I'm a very impatient person. I want things done
Me too, don't
yesterday.
worry about it.
Yeah, and so, but this process, I knew I had to be patient, and it was 2.5 months after my accident was when I finally received my everyday walking prosthetic, and that's when I learned about the cost of specialized prosthetic, which is a running blade, and how insurance companies will only cover your everyday walking leg. They will not cover a specialized prosthetic. So for me to be able to obtain a running blade, I was either going to have to pay for one of these on my own, or I was going to have a foundation donate one
Wow.
to me. And these specialized prosthetics can range anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 depending on what type of leg you want. And so I was kind of freaking out in that moment, thinking, am I going to be able to get a running blade in time for, before I graduate, because this is happening during my sophomore year. And I was very fortunate enough to receive a running blade from the Challenge Athletes Foundation, and that took about 9 months after my accident. So that whole sophomore season, I knew was going to be off the table. And so I spent that entire summer honestly just getting back into shape, learning how to use my running prosthetic, because it was a completely different prosthetic than my everyday walking leg. It was a lot less stable, and I was basically learning how to run again.
Wow.
And then I just kind of dove right into preseason my junior year. I showed up and had a meeting with my coaches saying, I'm ready to play, but if I'm going to do this, I need to be pushed, screamed at, and not treated like somebody with a disability. Don't treat me like somebody who's broken, because it's going to be a huge waste of time. And I had an incredible coaching staff, incredible teammates. They threw me into every single drill, but it wasn't easy at first. I mean, I couldn't catch a pass if my life depended on it. I was falling. There were so many times where I wanted to quit and give up. I was, questioning if this was ever going to happen. And it was really my teammates, and especially, my assistant coach was really the person that took upon herself to get me to that next level. And she started working with me before and after practice every single day, and was starting to get me ready so that I could potentially play my junior season. And that was my goal. I didn't want to wait till my senior year. I wanted to be able to find a position on the field that would work for me, So that was the tricky part because obviously I'm not going to be the quickest. I'm not going to be able to cut back and forth. I'm not really going to be able to lock somebody up on defense because I need to be able to cut back and forth. So there was a perfect position for me. I don't know if the audience listening is familiar with women's lacrosse, but I was playing attack, which was offense, and one of the positions is you play like the inside game and right
Hmm.
around in front of the net, and you basically cut back and forth, you create space, and you set picks, and then a lot of the times if you cut really quick and like you'll be wide open. So I thought that position was perfect for me. And so that's what we worked towards. And it was my junior season, about halfway through, is when I was able to touch the field again, because my coaches felt confident enough that they could put me into a game. And they weren't just putting me in just to put me in. My head coach even admitted to me after my junior season, listen, I never thought that we would get to this point. I thought, your senior game would roll around and we would just throw you in for a few minutes and we would take you off the field. But I was getting to the point where it didn't even seem like I had a prosthetic leg because I was finding different ways to adapt. And I think that was one of the most important things, was just I knew what my weaknesses were going to be. I mean, everybody kind of knew what my weaknesses were going to be, but a lot of people didn't know what I would be able to accomplish. And I actually was able to cut better off my prosthetic side than my sound side. So it was a lot of drills after practice with focusing on footwork, focusing on shooting, and I have to credit that to my assistant coach because she knew exactly what to do in a crazy moment. And I mean, she was only 4 years older than me, so we were kind of butting heads every single day. We were going back and forth, but I needed that tough love. I'm that type of person that responds to somebody yelling at me and screaming in my face and not letting me use excuses. And so she knew exactly what I needed and we got it done.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask, what's your training style? Because everybody kind of has a different approach. And I think athletics has changed tremendously over the last 10 years. Sometimes there's a little bit of a kinder approach or a more specific or analytical approach to help with training. So to know that you still need that tough love and that they were able to help find that impactful position for you is amazing. So you have this lacrosse journey and then you become a crossover in athletics. You go from lacrosse to track. And one of the other things that I heard that I just loved so much is your emphasis on learning running technique. So I got to ask about that because I know there's a number of different things in general that people don't take into account when it comes to running. I know that when my brother was going through his NFL draft process, the first things at camp that he had to relearn how to do was run. And he's like, I've been running for years. What are you talking about? And they were like, your technique is awful. Unfortunately, and you grew up with guys, as you mentioned, he comes home and tells me that I'm an awful runner. And I was like, you need to take that back to camp. So talk to me about the crossover from lacrosse to track and that running technique that you had to hone in for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because, like you said, I had no idea about running technique. Honestly, I grew up with a stick in my hand. So when I was running, it wasn't like I was focusing on my arms. And so when I graduated in 2019, I transitioned over to track. I had no idea what I was doing. I honestly just signed myself up for the first track meet that I found online. It was in Arizona. I had 1 month to train for it. I was honestly Googling above knee amputees, track and field. Not a ton was coming up. Luckily, I knew a couple of who my competitors were going to be, so I was stalking them on Instagram. I didn't have a track coach at that point. I showed up in my first race and I ended up winning and beating the reigning national champion because I always credit that to, the 2 years prior when I was playing lacrosse and every single time we did a run test, if I came in last place, I had to do 10 burpees. And then if I beat anybody, then the whole team had to do the burpees. So that was really what was helping me kind of get used to running with people by my side. And also I'm a competitive person. If you tell me I can't do something, I will honestly die trying to prove you wrong. And so when I crossed that finish line, not only did I beat the reigning national champion, but I also hit the qualifying times to be a part of the U.S. Paralympic national track and field team. So getting home, I knew that I needed a track coach and I was a part of a team again. This was basically going to be my career and what I was going to be investing everything in. So I found a track coach in Boston and I showed up and I was pretty cocky at this point. I mean, I just had one track meet. I won. I was thinking, what else do I got to do? I just got to keep running. And I did my first stride, and my coach looks at me and just simply says, "Dear God, how do you call yourself an athlete?" And I was looking at him all confused. He was like, "What are you doing with your arms?" And I just kept telling him, I'm don't really understand what running form is. I ran with a lacrosse stick, blah blah blah. He just looked at me. He's like, "Well, we are nowhere close to where I thought you would be, and we have a ton of work to do." And I am still to this day, fast forward 5, 6 years later, I'm working on my technique and my running form because it's so crucial and important, and especially in short distance running, like you need to be able, and a lot of it comes with, the alignment that I have on my prosthetic leg. I've learned so much about different alignments that I have in the last past year than I've known, 9 years of being an amputee, and the things that you can adjust to help you with you're not leaning back so much or it's pushing you forward. So, I mean, still to this day, I mean, he will not call me an athlete, not yet, even after being a two-time Paralympian. There's sometimes I get compliments, but most of the time it's just, yeah, we got to work on this, we got to work on that. But I think that's the beauty of sports. You're never satisfied. There's always things you can improve on. So I'm definitely learning, but it's crazy to me how I never realized how important technique was in running. And it's interesting that you say your brother with the NFL job. I mean, I can't even imagine the things that they're teling him of what he needs to do
Because of
to,
his
get
size
past.
and stuff. Yeah, it was just all
It's
these things. And when he came
it's
home with that, I was
crazy.
like, "You're like 260 plus pounds. Don't correct me yet. Like, I
Yeah.
have aerodynamics on my side." So I thought. And then when we went outside
Yeah.
to race, because we are a competitive family, I was like, "Okay, we're not going to talk about this ever again."
Yeah.
But I love that your coach is going to continue to give you that nugget to work towards. So you are an athlete and an all-star to us, but he's giving you that to work towards in the sense of becoming an athlete in his eyes. But
Yeah.
the accomplishment of becoming a two-time Paralympian, of course, I'm a song nerd, so bear with me, Noelle. The first thing that comes to mind for me: "Be young, be dope, be proud, like an American." Lana Del Rey gave us those spectacular lyrics, but you get to wear red, white, and blue. You get to rock USA across your chest. But what I have to ask is, your first Olympic event, what was what were the amount of emotions running through you? Like, what did that feel like to have such emotions coursing through you to represent USA along this journey that you've had? Now you're on one of the top mountains saying, "Hey, I'm here as an athlete."
Honestly, it's indescribable, the feeling. What I was most excited about was making the Team USA team, was repping Team USA on my chest, wearing the red, white, and blue. I think the emotions going into Tokyo, they were it was strange because COVID happened, postponed Tokyo and the Paralympic Games and the Olympic Games an entire year. So that was really challenging to kind of come to grasp with, but kind of managing those emotions and telling myself, use this extra time to get better at a sport you're not comfortable with. So I spent an entire extra year training, and then getting to Tokyo, it was in the middle of COVID. I mean, the COVID restrictions were insane. I was terrified that I was going to get COVID, and actually, when I got there, my teammate, she tests positive for COVID, so I
Oh
am in
God.
close contact with her, so I have to go into quarantine. None of my family they're not able to go. My fiance wasn't able to go, so I felt, I'm quarantined in a room, and I'm feeling like I'm alone. I don't have anybody. I'm calling home saying, I want to go home. I don't know if this is worth it. What am I doing here? And then after a day, I was like, oh my God, I'm being such a baby. Like I didn't come here to, be in the Paralympic Village, be in the Olympic Village. I came here for one reason, and that was to compete. And I was just excited to be able to rep my country. Honestly, I wasn't going in with crazy expectations because Tokyo is honestly like my fifth or sixth time competing ever on that type of stage in a track meet. So I knew that the adrenaline was going to help, but I just needed to contain it. And, when I crossed the finish line, I placed sixth in the world and I broke my own American record. And I was just proud in that moment because I had gotten through, the mental battle of COVID and being in quarantine, being away from my teammates, being away from my coaches. But when I look back at Tokyo, it's such a crazy feeling because it just didn't feel like that environment of the Paralympic Games because we didn't have that full stadium. And so leading up to Paris, I told myself I wanted to be a different breed of an athlete. Like I wanted to go in with the experience under my belt and be in medal contention and fight for that medal and have that confidence. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, last year I not only was training for the 100 meter, but I started a brand new event. I started competing in the long jump because I thought that would be an incredible opportunity for me to medal and to get. I knew that from what my other competition, what they were putting on the table, I knew that I could potentially bring it. And that's why I headed out to California because I had a long jump coach out there saying, listen, I could get you jumping over 5 meters and in one season. And to put it into perspective for everybody listening, when I started long jumping, there had only been 3 above knee amputees in the entire world that have women are in my classification group that have ever jumped over 5 meters. Were countless amount of amputees that have gone through their entire careers, never jumped over 5 meters. I was trying to do this in my first season because that was the only way I was going to make the team. And I believe it was 5, 6 months into long jumping, I was able to jump over 5 meters, and I jumped 5 meters in 8 or 9 competitions in a row. And I was heading into Paris, ranked second in the world, and I was in medal contention. So there was a different feeling from going into Paris than going into Tokyo because now I have a lot more pressure on me that I needed to deal with. And it was just, it was a roller coaster. I mean, they told us going into Paris, listen, if Tokyo is your first Paralympic Games, expect this to be your rookie season because it's going to
Wow.
be an entirely new environment. I mean, we have a stadium full of 70,000 people. And I'm honestly thinking going into it I was hoping that it was going to be packed, but you never know with the Paralympics. And the people of Paris, everyone in Europe, all the support, they showed out. I mean, every single day it was a packed stadium, and that was just the emotions leading up to that. It was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And I think my coach and I got a little ahead of ourselves because the world record for my classification group is 5.46 meters. I think the furthest I jumped last season was 5.29 meters, which is, I mean, it's very close. And so we were trying to do everything possible to break that world record in Paris. We were changing up my alignment. We were changing up a lot of different things to the point where I was getting a little over my head. I was overthinking things. And this is where the mental state starts to come in. And I'm starting to overthink and I'm starting to doubt myself. And the alignment just wasn't working out. I went into my competition extremely excited, extremely confident, and I ended up placing fourth in the world, and I was centimeters off the podium. I think one of my jumps, if it wasn't a scratch, I would have gotten bronze. But that's just the beauty of the game. I mean, honestly, I went home that night thinking of myself as a failure. I honestly thought that the Paris Paralympic Games was an entire waste, and I could have done so much better. There were so many things I could have changed. But then when I woke up the next day, I realized what had happened and what I had done. The sun was still shining, and I told myself that I needed to be proud because of where I've come in just 9 months. I was getting to the point where I was scared that I wasn't even going to make the Paris team because it was going to be a very difficult team to make. And just to make that team and still place fourth in the world, I know I'm not bringing home that medal. But it just gives me more motivation to try for LA 2028. And I've been
Hmm.
telling everybody this. I promise you I will be coming home with that gold medal because I'm going to dial everything in. I went in again as my rookie season. I made rookie mistakes. I was changing alignments, changing different things. If you talk to a seasoned amputee that has been to 3 Paralympic Games, they will tell you the first thing never to do is to touch your alignment. What got you there is what is going to work, and just trust it. Never change, even if it's the slightest difference. Do not change anything. So that's just something that I have to, live and learn through. But very excited that I was able to still represent my country, still place fourth in the world. But now I'm looking at world championships for this year with kind of a vengeance and just telling myself never again. And yeah, so it was a crazy journey, and it was a roller coaster of emotions. But I look back and I'm so grateful. I look at pictures and I'm just in awe because you just see a packed stadium. My entire family was there this time. My fiance, his family, they were there. So having them in the stands supporting me, that is such an indescribable feeling, and it's something that I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, ultimate chills, honestly, when you describe. I mean, again, you feel more isolated in Tokyo. The mental battle is way different. And then you up the ante. You add this other event into the mix. And as a competitor and clearly somebody who's like, I'm going to get this, like you put yourself in a position to want to nail it right away, but you forget to give yourself the grace of like, there's other competitors that have been focused on this event for maybe years and you threw
Yeah.
it in the mix in months. So yeah, grace is a big one, but still, I mean, being able to have that chip on your shoulder and to be able to apply enough pressure to yourself to even be competitive, like that in itself alone is a massive accomplishment. So always something to keep in mind when you push
Yeah.
yourself. But again, lack of patience, I totally understand it. Something else I have to pick your brain on, though. So, of course, you go through this emotional roller coaster competing in the Olympics, but then you sign up for season 43 of Survivor. So, like, were you able to draw on anything from the Olympics or life in general to help you be a part of Survivor? Because now the mentality changes. You have to be strategic here in order to even compete in this wild event.
It's crazy. So, a little background on me. My mom is the biggest diehard Survivor fan there is. Never miss a season, never miss an episode. So she got me into it, at a young age. I was that stubborn 10-year-old, 12-year old saying, I don't want to watch this stupid show. But then I fell in love with it and never thought that I would ever go on. I mean, I'm the type of person, if I do not eat or I do not sleep, I am miserable to be around. And I knew I would probably be voted off first. But it was crazy because when I was in Tokyo, the head casting director had reached out to a couple of us Paralympians, gauging interest on if we wanted to apply for the show. And I was one of those people. He had DM'd me asking if I've ever thought about applying. And I honestly thought it was a joke. I didn't think it was real because it was just the coincidence of me watching it, me being a fan of the show. And I was also petrified because there's never been an above knee amputee on the show Survivor before. There has been two below the knee amputees. We are completely different our disabilities. For me to be able to do Survivor, I need two different prosthetic legs. I mean, the below knee amputees that were on it in the past, they had one leg. You can go in the water with it, you can run with it. I need a waterproof prosthetic. I need a running blade just to run. So when he reached out to me, I just simply asked him, you realize I'm an amputee. I just want to get that out there before we have this conversation. And he was like, yes, I have eyes. I can see your profile. And he gave me a call. And I was just asking him all these questions. And he was like, listen, just because I'm reaching out to you doesn't automatically mean you're on the show. We have to go through the casting process. He was like, all the questions you have about prosthetics and stuff, we will figure it out together. And we will figure it out along the way. So I go through the whole casting process. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, they're going to realize everything that's going to come with me being on the show. And they're probably not even, they're going to think that it's not going to be worth it. So, I mean, when you go through the casting process of a show like Survivor, you can have interviews for 2 weeks straight, and then you will not hear anything for, a month or two. And then they'll come back at you, and you have to go through another round of interviews. You have to go through medical. You have to go through a psych evaluation test. You have to go through all these different obstacles. And every single time you do an interview, you have to bring this insane amount of energy. Luckily, when they were casting for my season, everything was virtual. Typically, they bring everybody out to LA and you have to do it one on one. But
Right.
we did it all through, it was all virtual. And it was March of 2022. I hadn't really heard anything for like a month or two. So I was honestly thinking that it wasn't going to be a possibility because they were going to be filming at the end of April in May. So if I was thinking, if I haven't heard anything, I don't think I'm going on. And the casting director texted me. He said, hey, can you give me a quick call? And I was like, okay, this is the moment that he's going to tell me they went with somebody else.
Yeah.
So he calls me and he's like, oh, what are you up to? I'm like, nothing. There's a blizzard outside. I'm snowed in. What are you up to? He's like, well, do you want to leave the blizzard and go to Fiji because you're on season 43 of Survivor? And I honestly
Yes to leaving the
just,
blizzard.
yeah. Well, no, I paused for a second and I said, I have to call you back. And when I hung up the phone, my fiance was right next to me, and I just remember talking to him about it and just saying, listen, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. I was petrified because obviously Survivor is a social game.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to look at, and it's a strategic game. They're gonna look at me immediately, and they're gonna want to vote me off because of the fact that I have a prosthetic leg. Nobody's gonna want to take me to the end because they think that somebody will just hand me the $1 million. Everyone's going to doubt my athletic capabilities because of the fact that I have a disability. I mean, you receive zero food when you're out there. So that means when I lose weight, my leg loses weight. So how am I going to be able to keep my prosthetic leg suctioned onto my body while doing all these physically grueling challenges, on top of maintaining the perfect social game? And then so I'm rattling off all these excuses, saying I don't want to do it. And I call the casting director back, and he is just not listening to any of my excuses. He could honestly care less at that point. And he just tells me, listen, we will help you along the way with figuring out your prosthetic legs. We will get your prosthetist involved and we will figure it out. And I'm still going back like with excuses, but then I'm thinking to myself, if I don't do this, go on this show, then who is going to? Who is going to show that positive
Mm-hmm.
representation for the amputee community? This is my chance to show the world what we're capable of. Does that mean I was excited? Absolutely not. I mean, I said yes to the show, but the whole month leading up to it, I could not sleep. I honestly was petrified. I was trying to figure out different ways that I could, better my chances of being out there. And so I honestly went the route of not eating a lot the whole month and trying to lose as much weight as possible so that I could try to adapt with my prosthetic leg.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go out there and I film the show. And obviously, I won't give anything specific away just in case anybody wants to go back and watch. But I will say this, I was not the weakest person out there. I think the thing that I was most scared of was, back at home, if I'm going through a difficult time or I'm scared or I doubt myself, I have people I can rely on. I have, my mother, my fiance, my coaches, my friends. Like, I'm not alone. Going out there on Survivor, they take your phones away from you. You have zero communication with the outside world. You cannot just call home one day and just be like, hey, I just need to hear your voice. Like, it's not possible. And so going out there, I was alone. And I needed to figure out a way to, you know, believe in myself because every single adventure that I do, I am the person to doubt myself. But that always just gives me more motivation to do it. I can't explain it. I don't know why. But it really helped drive me. But then the strangest thing happened when I was out there is like you find other people to be your family out there. It's like people don't realize when they're watching these shows how much downtime we have. We literally only have each other to entertain ourselves. Like we just talk to one another. We get to know one each other. Like everything about everybody within the first 2 days of being there. And so getting home and waiting for the season to air, being sworn to secrecy, it was kind of scary because obviously you go out and you do this whole show and then you forget that there's cameras. You forget and then you forget about the whole experience in itself because it's a month in advance when it airs. Or no, it's 3 months, 3 months. So it's a crazy amount of time. And when I was watching it back and watching it live every single week, I told myself that if I could just help that one person that's going through a difficult time, the whole experience would be worth it. And the amount of messages that I would get every single week of, people who are disabled, people who are going through difficult times, parents that have kids who are disabled that watched every single Wednesday night and they would point to the TV saying, Mom, she looks like me. Maybe I could do this show one day. I mean, that's really what made the whole experience worth it. And it really made me grateful to have the opportunity to go on that show because it was bigger than just myself. I mean, it allowed other people to believe in themselves just for me going on a reality television show and struggling. I mean, the ups and downs that I went on that show. I am that person that will never cry in front of people. I think I cried like twice on reality television and I hated watching that back. But honestly, it was an amazing moment because it shows that everybody is vulnerable in different ways. And in my instance, I wasn't even crying about the fact that I was starving and that I was tired. It was during challenges where I was struggling with the physical aspect of something that I thought I would be really great at. And there were a couple challenges where I hit roadblocks and I had to figure out different ways to overcome it. There were challenges I would take my prosthetic leg off and do the whole thing without my leg on. There were challenges I would be in last place and I would fight my way to the front. It was an incredible experience, and it was just something that I'm so grateful for, because I look back and I think to myself, if I can do that, then, oh, and obviously answering your question, does how like just doing all these different obstacles help prepare me for this show? Yes and no. I would say for the physical aspect of it and being in shape and everything, that definitely helped, but nobody can prepare anybody from not receiving any food. I think it was the first 10 days before I actually got something in my body that wasn't coconut. I was literally eating coconut
Oof.
for the first 10 days I was out there. So just the mental aspect of that is crazy. And just finding different ways to be mentally tough, and just telling yourself, make it another day, make it another day. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't even imagine trying to like put everything into context. Like you sound like you're somebody that prepares for everything, and that's not a situation where you can actually prepare for everything. So there's some
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
you have to like leave up to in the moment, and trying to put that anxiety at bay, but also being, like we talked about, the mental toughness, the strategizing. A lot of strategy goes into all of this. That is something that you can't prepare for. You just rise to the occasion in the moment. And I don't think
Yeah.
that there's a better motivation than this is bigger than me, because when you put yourself out of the situation, I think you remove all of the limitations, for one. And for two, you just realize how human it is being human. And that in itself, I think gets a lot of us over certain finish lines that we never thought that we would get past. I feel like you've had a lot of tremendous moments where you've risen to the occasion and committed to things that were bigger than you. That brings us perfectly to your foundation, Born to Run. We talked about the fun side of learning how to run, the things that you don't think about, but also the focus here is getting prosthetics to younger individuals. I know that my mom worked with a veteran group, and they've mentioned how hard it is to even get prosthetics, number one, to get the correct prosthetics, number two, so that you can have quality of life. Can you just talk about, the importance of this foundation, for one, and for two, how people can just help and be a part of something so important?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had personally received three different specialized prosthetics from three different incredible foundations. And seeing the work that those foundations do, and, giving back to the community, that really inspired me, and it resonated with me, and it made me realize that this is something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to be able to give back all the help and the support that I received, and portray the message out to the world that if I can go through something like my accident and still live the life that I want, then 100% so can anybody else. And luckily, I have an incredible family. And with their help, I was able to start the Born to Run Foundation. And I think the main goal was just to donate specialized prosthetics to individuals who, you know, either are born with a disability, have something like an accident happen to them, and they just want to live an active lifestyle. They just want to live a regular life, whether it's going to the beach with their friends, going hiking, just different things, because it's crazy to think that insurance companies will not gift a specialized prosthetic like a running blade, because they view it as, it's something that is a gift. And but anybody with two legs or two arms can wake up and just go for a run without it being a problem. So I think the biggest thing is just the messaging that we want to portray out to everybody. And it's something that I never knew of when I had two legs. I never knew that it was difficult to obtain these prosthetic devices. And I think just spreading the word as much as possible. But if you're listening to this and this is something that you feel like you want to help get involved, there are countless amount of organizations, especially in the New England area. But other than that, it's just spreading the word. And I know that there are different states that are trying to get prosthetic legs incorporated with insurance companies. And I believe New Hampshire just passed a bill to get children under, I mean, kids and young adults under 18, they will gift them a running blade and they won't have to cover it. But I think we need to
Amazing.
do a little better than that. I think, just because you're over 18, it doesn't mean you're not capable of going for a run. I didn't start my career until I was, 22 years old. So that wouldn't have been able to happen for me if I didn't have something like a prosthetic leg donated to me. So I think it's amazing to see the very first donation that we did. I was a senior in college, and it was to a 2-year-old boy, and he just wanted a running blade so that he could play sports with his friends and he could just run around. And I kid you not, we were in the prosthetic office with him and his entire family, and he puts the running blade on and he started running down the hall like he's had it his entire life. And I had a flood of emotions hit me, because in part of it was I was jealous because it took me 2 weeks to run without being harnessed on a treadmill. And this little dude just put his leg on and he's running down the hall like
God.
he's had it his entire life. And two, just being there in that moment with him and his family and just having a part of his journey. I mean, it was a full circle moment for me because I was that one person that just wanted a, a running blade so that I could just get back to sports. So that just really inspired me to want to help even more amputees. And I believe we have donated from 2018, or no, 2019 to now. We have donated about 38 different specialized prosthetics. We try to do 4 to 5 a year, and just getting to meet all the incredible amputees out there and hearing all of their stories, it's just so inspiring and motivating to me. And it's like creating a family, and I think that's really important, especially people who struggle as amputees or people with disabilities, because having a community sometimes it doesn't come as easily as it did for me. I mean, a lot of people don't have the same resources that I have luckily had, and I realize that. So I think it's really important to try to create a community so that other people who are going through similar situations can see it and they can become a part of the community. Because I'll tell you this, ever since becoming an amputee and being in this disabled community, I mean, it is just something that I'm so grateful to be a part of, because you go to a Paralympic Games or you go to a Paralympic track meet and you just watch the competitions and you watch these athletes with all these different types of disabilities perform at the highest level of not just people with disabilities, but people in general. I mean, there are tons of disabled athletes I know that are so much better athletes than people who are able-bodied, and it just shows that we are resilient. We are, just because we have a disability, it's not because we're broken. It doesn't mean that we're incapable of doing something. I have never woken up after becoming an amputee. I have never woken up thinking, "Oh my God, I have a prosthetic leg, so I can't do this. I can't do that." It's honestly the exact opposite for me. I feel like I have more drive and more motivation and more grit now being an amputee, because I know that it's the process that it takes to get there, and it's just being grateful for being a part of the community and just still having my life. I mean, waking up every single day and be like, "Listen, I'm still alive. This accident didn't kill me, so why am I gonna sit around and sulk at the fact that I lost my leg? I should be doing the opposite, and I should be embracing my life and tackling challenges and adventures head on."
Yeah, and I think that just perfectly circles us back to the top of this amazing interview. You woke up and you decided you weren't going to let a moment define you, and you're helping others make sure that they're not going to be defined either, and building that community and that support system. Probably one of the most important things I think to point out, and I hope everyone goes and pays attention and does their research and looks into Born to Run, but more importantly, it's creating that support system, because everybody has different elements and accessibility to people that are going to support them, love them, uplift them, and help them just stay as mentally strong as they were then, now, and coming up. Before I let you go, I swear I could talk to you forever, Noelle, and I want to. I gotta put you on the hot seat for just a quick second. You're from New England
Okay.
area. I heard a little talk around the streets that maybe Tom Brady was one of your favorite athletes, and there's this huge debate going on right now about whether or not Patrick Mahomes is about to dethrone the GOAT himself. What are your thoughts on that? If Patrick Mahomes wins this Super Bowl, is it a wrap for Tom Brady when it comes to the GOATum, one would say?
I think you have to look at Patrick Mahomes' two pretty big playoff losses that he had to Tom Brady, and the fact
Oh,
that he was never able to beat Tom Brady. Listen, I'm from New England, so you can never tell me that Tom Brady isn't the GOAT. But I think it's incredible to see Patrick Mahomes and all that he's been able to do. It does kill me that it's not the Patriots, but no, nobody could ever surpass Tom Brady. I think what he's been able to do in his life, as a human being and as an athlete, is incredible. I am a sponsor of Noble, and he did take over Noble. So
yeah.
that was like, that was a dream come true for me, in that Noble mentality. But I think, yeah, no, I mean, even if Patrick Mahomes wins this and gets the three-peat, I know it's never been done before, but how many times has Tom Brady done something that's never been done before? And
Mm-hmm.
you always have to look at the person that Patrick Mahomes always struggled against, and it was Tom Brady. Listen, I wish Tom Brady was the same age as Patrick Mahomes, because then they could go head to head. But
Right. I'll
yeah,
give you
no,
one though.
I
I'll give you
don't.
one though.
Yeah, I
Patrick
don't know.
Mahomes
I
hasn't
mean,
had to do it
I'm
with a new team yet, and biasly, I'm like, hey, Tom Brady did it with a new team. He did it with my team, so
first team. I mean,
exactly,
literally the first year.
and
So
beat him.
you
So that helps too.
Exactly. Yeah, you also have to look at, I mean, I don't know, everyone's saying that the refs are helping the Chiefs. So, and there are a lot of facts to defend that. But I mean, people kind of said it the same when Tom Brady
Yeah.
and the Patriots were having their dynasty as well. So, I mean, whatever. But no, Tom Brady, ride or die, and always the
Sticking
GOAT.
with it. I love it. I appreciate the loyalty. We need a little bit of fan etiquette, though, really quickly. So, as a diehard New England fan, Super Bowl coming up, Chiefs having a rematch versus the Eagles. What's the etiquette here? Do we root against the Chiefs? Do we root against the Eagles? Or are we just here for the commercials and the halftime show?
I don't know. It's so tough because, like, you just really don't know who to cheer for. I mean, it would be cool to see the three-peat, I guess. It would be cool to see Taylor Swift on the field. I get all of that, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. I always love the halftime shows as well, but I mean, it's not the same when your team isn't in the Super Bowl.
100%.
I was honestly rooting for, the Ravens. I was really hoping that they would get there so that you could, or the Lions, the Ravens or the Lions,
The
like I
Lions broke
really
my heart.
wanted. I know, yeah. So I don't even know who I'm cheering for at this moment.
We
I
still have
don't
time
know.
to
It's
figure it out.
crazy. Last year, I didn't even know who I was cheering for until they won, and I was like, okay, I was actually cheering for the Chiefs because I was fascinated by the Taylor Swift Travis Kelsey thing. I get it. Like it's cool to see, and it's just insane. But I don't want people that aren't Swiftie fans to come after me though. Like I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate the relationship. I don't think it's fake. I will say that.
Thank
My
you for the
fiance and I get into
clarification.
it yeah, my fiance and I get into it all the time. I'm like, what do they have to gain? They don't even post themselves on social media. They don't follow one another. They don't want to be in the public eye. Like why would it be fake?
That's probably one of the
Whatever.
biggest things to point out too. But that's a whole debate that we might need a whole other show for
I
that debate.
know, a whole
Noel,
nother
I'll have
hour.
to get you when you get settled back over on the West Coast. But before I let you go, I have to ask one final thing. Saw on social media, starting to get that itch. What is next? What is coming up for Noelle Lambert, especially as you continue to get ingrained in 2025?
We got World Championships at the end of September in New Delhi, India. So I'm very excited for that. Crazy timing though, because I'm getting married September 5th. So it's going to be a
Wow.
very busy month. But very grateful. And that's what we're looking towards. We're looking towards getting that world record. We're looking towards bringing home that gold medal. And I am starting to get that itch. I haven't long jumped since Paris, and I've taken a much needed break, but now I'm ready to get back on the track and I'm ready to get things done.
What's in the headphones for Noelle Lambert to start getting you to that run through a wall feeling? I wanted to ask what was on the Olympic playlist because, like I mentioned, I'm a music nerd, so there's something that sometimes I
Yeah.
have to throw on
I mean,
repeat.
it's crazy because I can listen to anything and I can get motivated. Like when I'm lifting, I love listening to like old school music, like Chris Brown, like old school R&B.
Oh, I
Like I
love
love that
this.
stuff. Yeah, I love just vibing. It was crazy. I went through a little bit of a psychotic period with the Sabrina Carpenter, but I'm past it now. I don't know. It just
We
hit
all
me. It was
did.
TikTok. It was
We all
TikTok's
did.
fault.
Yeah.
So I was vibing to her music. Honestly, when I'm at a competition, though, I am one of those athletes. I think I might need to change it up, though. I might need to try something new. But typically, I'm that athlete that I won't wear headphones. I like to take everything in. I like to listen to everything, be in the moment. I mean, a lot of the times when you're at these major competitions anyways, and you're on the competition warm-up track, you can't wear headphones because
Oh, good point.
there's so many different things going on. There's people in wheelchairs going around the track that if it hits you, you're done. Like it's so you need to be kind of on alert. But I will say I'm gonna try some different things up. That's kind of what I've learned is that I can't stay in the same routine. I'm very OCD. I like things done. I'm superstitious to the max, so I need to try to get out of that.
Hmm.
Because it didn't help me. It didn't help me bring home that medal. So I got to change things up, and I got to realize that. But yeah, I mean, if you put anything old school in front of me, I will vibe to it. I mean, I'm just not great at finding new music. I mean, I'm
It's a
not,
pain.
I don't go out and search for it. Luckily, I have, one of my best friends, she's big with it. I mean, my fiance, he's pretty good at it as well. So he'll tell me different things, but I'm an old school gal. I love that. I have like an oldies playlist with like 500 songs that I just go back and forth with. So
I
love
love
that
it.
stuff.
I go from like teenage angst to old man in like 10 seconds, but I grew up on the Rolling
Okay.
Stones. So I think
Oh, I
everything
love
and
that.
anything can motivate you. Just it all starts here, as we have discussed.
Absolutely.
Noelle, you are
Yeah.
an absolute pleasure. It was an honor to get to chat with you, get to know you more. More importantly, everyone, make sure you're following Noelle over at Noelle Lambert. See what she's up to for 2025 as she chases down gold. And then on top of it, make sure you look into Born to Run and all of the other amazing things that Noelle will have her hand on. Please have a safe flight over to LA as you get ready to get back in training mode and ditch the winter for the warmth. You guys are watching
Yeah.